my friend. I'm Doreen Virtue, and welcome to this healing meditation with beloved Jesus. Jesus is someone who, for me personally, has been life-changing and life-saving. I was raised in a Christian household, and at the time when I was being raised, I loved the stories about Jesus, but I didn't have a personal relationship with him until I was in my teens. And that's when, right out of high school, I moved in with some friends in the desert of California. And just like the desert, we didn't have much of a plan for our life. We didn't know what we were doing. We were just kind of drifting by. And then one evening, when I was in bed and just about ready to go to sleep, and I was completely sober and of sound mind, I saw these three figures, these three people across the room. And I could tell they were apparitions. They were not solid like you and I, but they were of 3 dimensions, and I could see the coloring and of what they were wearing and their skin and hair. And one was a woman and there was 2 men. And I knew instinctively that the man was Jesus and that the woman was Mother Mary. And then the third one I didn't recognize, but I knew he was a holy man. I feel like he was John the Baptist because I feel a real strong connection to him as well. And the 3 of them were coming at me like they were floating toward me. And I would close my eyes to see if they'd go away. I'd open my eyes, they'd still be there. And they were coming closer and coming closer. And as a teenager, I just didn't have the emotional maturity of knowing how to deal with this. My thought was that it was my time to die and they were taking me home to heaven. And so at first I fought this. I was like, no, I'm too young to die, and I didn't want to have them come near me and take me. But then I started to get the feeling, because as they got closer to me, I got the peaceful feeling from them. And the thought occurred to me, if it is my time, just be at peace and be at grace. And so I just relaxed, and they came to me, and then they went right through me. They passed completely through my body, like I was a ghost, and they just went through me. And I felt this whoosh of energy in my heart. And my thought was, oh my God, I've been born again. And I'd heard about born again Christianity, but I had never really explored it. I didn't even know what it was. But this thought was that Jesus and Mary and John the Baptist were now with me in my heart. And it changed my whole life. I moved back home. I got a plan in my life. I went back to college. I had started college, but I dropped out. And I started to study journalism in school, which helps me with my writing today. And really started to care about myself after that, because I could feel this guiding force with me really strong. And I developed a personal relationship with Jesus instead of just this person in the Bible or that you hear a minister talk about. Jesus became this just as real as any best friend I'd ever had, just even more real, because he was there all the time. And whenever I was sad or upset or going through something, I would turn to Jesus, and still do, and I would get this instant knowledge of what to do next, to help me. And I have to admit, there was a couple times I didn't listen to his guidance, and those were the kind of more painful parts of my life. But I learned from them, because I learned that if you listen, you're safe. And everything goes really, really well. But when we don't listen, we learn from it, because it doesn't go so well. It's a painful lesson. So anyway, I know that a lot of people I've talked with over the years have told me about their kind of inconsistent relationship with Jesus. Some people have told me that they relate him to guilt because of the guilt that's espoused in some religious sections. There's people who think, well, I'm not good enough. They look at their mistakes they've made and they think that Jesus is judging them. And then there's people who don't want to even say the name Jesus. They want to call him Sananda or Yeshua. And, however you relate to Jesus, as I know him, he wants to have a relationship with you. And I'm bringing you this meditation because it's my deep feeling that we need Jesus in our world right now more than ever. He is the hardest working of all the ascended masters. I mean, he's the one that comes and saves people. And I'm not talking about a religious saving. I'm talking about physically saving. I'm talking about people who pass on and who go to this lost place in the afterlife plane where it says void. He goes and he gets them, and he doesn't look at your pedigree to see, how much good you did or what religion you were. He just saves people, whoever opens up to him. So I really feel like we need this rescuing more than ever right now. So this is not a religious video, but I respect all religions of love. So, this is my perspective, and I want to take you on a journey that I go on with Jesus to help us to do healing and heart opening. When I talk to Jesus, and I hope you can feel this through the video, it's euphoric. It is the highest high of anything I've ever experienced. I can feel like I'm floating in heaven with him. And what he has taught me is that heaven is here, not up in some cloud somewhere, but here, all around us. And so that everything that is heavenly is with us right now. So that means that right now, everything is healthy in spiritual truth. Everything is abundant in spiritual truth. Everything is right in God's will and God's eyes right now in spiritual truth. And when we can experience that, it creates healings, absolute revealings of the spiritual truth as God created all of us, perfect, whole, and complete in God's image and likeness. So please join me. And as you know, I always begin my meditations with breath, that breathing in, connecting with the inspiration and the breath of God. And breathing this in, and then on the exhale, just join me in letting go of anything that's on your mind, any worries you want to give to God, anything that you want to let go and let God take care of, any decisions you're trying to make, any pain you're going through, any worries that you have for yourself or others. With each exhale, let's give these and release them. And as you know, Jesus is able to be with every one of us who calls upon him. He's not limited in any way. He is like God. He's able to be everywhere. They call it omnipresence. And in spiritual truth, you're omnipresent too, darling. And so I ask that Jesus is in your presence, if he's not already there. And if you will join me in calling on Jesus, think his name, or if you prefer to call him Sananda or Yeshua, whatever you feel like calling him. He's not particular about the name as long as it's with respect. And call him Lord, Son of God, Jesus. Please come to each and every one of us who are together right now in this harmonious unity of prayer and meditation. And notice how you feel right now. Notice if you can feel, I almost feel like it's the clouds of heaven and this kind of lilting, light feeling. And we just breathe in these beautiful clouds of heaven that are all around you right now here on earth. And feeling yourself, feeling lighter, burdens being lifted off of you. And anything else that comes to mind that you're worried about or concerned about, trying to make decisions about, just exhale. We're giving this to God and to Jesus. Letting them go. Beautiful. And dear Jesus, we ask that you help each and every one of us to shed our burdens, to not try to do things by ourselves, our human selves, but to go to our higher self's connection with God, that oneness with all of creation that is love. Dear Lord, we ask that you help us all to clearly feel and hear and know you right now. We ask for a personal relationship for each and every one of us. And let's go ahead and ask him a question. What question would you like to ask Jesus right now? And think or say the question. You can even write it. And the answer comes. Sometimes as a thought, sometimes as a feeling, even a sense in your body. Some of us see the answers or even hear them. They can come as signs as well. However the answers are coming to you, whenever they come. Sometimes they don't come right away because maybe we're in a rush or we're uptight. That can slow down us hearing the answer, but the answer is given to us immediately. And any other questions you might have, maybe you've been wondering if something is spiritually correct or not, or biblically correct. You can ask Jesus, is this okay? You can ask him about the people in your life. I've found there's nothing you can't ask him about. That's a double negative. You can ask him about everything. And just taking that time. And Jesus says that he would like us to do a healing with forgiveness passage right now. So he says that you're harboring some resentments, and you may not even be aware of them because they're so deeply unconscious. So Jesus, will you help us to mine deeply into our souls, into our minds, into our feelings and emotions, and gather up any resentments that we're holding on to. For these burdens are not holy. They're not worthy of those of us who are the children of God. So Jesus, please help us to release and let go of resentments. He wants to let you know that these resentments do not protect you or keep you safe. That being defensive is not the way to safety, but by clinging to the word that God gives you of guidance, and yes, even warnings, will keep you safe. And in order to hear God, we have to be clear of these old resentments. So he knows that you've been hurt. He knows that people in your life have disappointed you. And so what you're resentful about is justifiable on a human level, but he says that the price you're paying is way too expensive for your own sanity, your life purpose. So he would like you to release these resentments to him, and he will sort them out, he says. He says, leave the justice to God. And doesn't that feel good to unburden yourself? I know I feel so good when I forgive. Sometimes I don't even know I'm hanging on to something until I ask Jesus to shine the light on any areas of darkness within me. And this doesn't have to be a conscious process. You don't have to know who you're forgiving right now, just that you're open to it. Please be willing to allow Jesus to enter into your heart and clear away anything that's not of God. Anything that's not of love, we're correcting it right now. Lifting you up to your true higher self. The true you as God created you. And if you feel tears coming, that's part of the detox and the cleansing. Allow them to happen. Beautiful. And breathing. And now let's go ahead and work with Jesus for any forgiveness work for yourself. Because let's face it, we've all done things that maybe we regret or we wish we could change. But the past is the past, and it's only there for us to learn from, not to beat ourselves up with. So, dear Jesus, please help us to release any resentment we might have toward ourselves. Anything that we're holding on to that we are feeling guilty about, any shame, any self-judgments. Jesus, please help us to have compassion upon ourselves and know that at every minute we were doing the best that we could with what we knew at that time. We would do different now, but please help us to let any heaviness from the past go now so that we can move forward freely and do the work that we came here to do. Beautiful. I'm sorry for the painful experiences that you've had, but my prayer is that now we can let those go and just learn from them. They're learning opportunities. They're not something to punish yourself with. So, breathing and releasing. Beautiful. And now let's do any kind of releasing of any unforgiveness we may be holding on to God. Now, this might even sound blasphemous or unheard of, but think about this. There's many people who I talk to who prayed for something to happen. Usually it's that a loved one would live who was very sick or injured. And then that loved one passed. And so they believe that their prayers were not heard. They sometimes become atheists, or they get mad at God, or they just stop praying. And that's a tragedy, because prayer is what keeps us connected with home, with our higher self, with all the answers that we could ever want. And what I've learned about tragedies is still based on our third dimensional knowledge. I mean, we can't know everything that God knows, but I absolutely do believe that every one of us has free will choices, and God respects that, even if those choices aren't something that God would make for us if we were to consult and pray about it. And so if our loved ones are sick or are injured, they actually have a free will choice of what to do. And they're shown many different options in the spirit world. They're shown that if they stay, this is what will happen. If they go back home to heaven, this is what will happen. And sometimes they make the choice to go back home to heaven out of love, because they didn't want to burden their loved ones with having to care for them, and other reasons, more than we can expound upon in this time we have together. But I just want to let you know that sometimes God calls the angels, the people angels, home to heaven before we're ready to let them go. So the really good people, even the really good animals, sometimes go home before we're ready. And it's tragic, it's sad on our behalf. And all we can do is pray for grace. And grace means acceptance of the plan. And have the faith that we will understand it all later. Maybe it'll be later when we're even more spiritually mature down the road, or maybe it'll be later when we pass on or have a near-death experience. Then we'll see how everything fits together. But I have faith that God's infinite wisdom, infinite intelligence is perfect divine order, and that nothing's out of place, and that includes people's free will choices. So, dear Jesus, please help us to forgive any resentments we're holding on to when it seemed like our prayers weren't answered. Please help us to regain our faith in God, in fairness and divine order. Please help us to regain our faith in you and our faith in prayers. Please help us, O Lord, to have the passion of God's love. Please help us to feel that love in our heart and to fall back in love with God again, because God is love and we're love, and it's just completely merged in spiritual truth. There's no separation whatsoever between you and God. And when we feel that, when we know that, then we have that breakthrough, aha, that, wow, all there is love. The rest of this is a nightmare dream, an illusion. And it's a very realistic illusion, and we have a responsibility to do our part, to bring blessings to everyone that we connect with in the dream, the illusion, and do our part to help in the dream and the illusion, the world, to be the hero or the heroine that you're born to be with your life purpose. Dear God, we ask that you and your Son, Jesus Christ, give us the strength and the courage and the motivation to follow your divine guidance. Now, every moment of every day, God and Jesus and your angels are talking to you and answering your questions. The question is, do we listen? A lot of times people will say to me that their prayers aren't answered and that they just can't feel God. And when I talk with them, I find that what's really going on is that they are distancing themselves from that connection from God. God never leaves us, but we can ignore God. Sometimes through intoxicants, alcohol, drugs, even overeating junk food, making your life really noisy with a lot of noisy drama or even loud music can block out the awareness of God's steady presence. And then when we make this quiet time like you are right now, which I have such respect for you in doing, then we can start to feel, hear, know, and think God's answers to us and the guidance. It's repetitive messages that urge us to take positive action. And it is selfless, it is to help others, but it's also you receive at the same point, because God is your parent, and no parent, no loving parent wants anything for their child but the best. And so your parent, God, wants you to have a safe, comfortable, fulfilling and happy and healthy life. And so when you ask for something for yourself, what we have to delineate is that the ego or really our higher self in God. So the big litmus test is when you are asking, is it a sense that you've already asked for this and you got it and you want more and more and more and more and more? The ego is insatiable. It always wants more. Where the higher self would only ask for in support of what will help others. So let's say that you're being guided to be a healer and do healing work. So your guidance would ask you to do things like maybe get some schooling for to get information and also confidence. Maybe your guidance would ask you to detox so that you can be an even more clear channel of God's messages and healing energy. Your guidance would ask you to do things that would ultimately serve that purpose. Where the ego would want to ask for things that are self-aggrandizing, meaning to prop you up, to make you rich, famous, etc. And when you analyze the basis of the ego, it's always because the ego feels afraid, right? Because the ego is the epitome of separation of God. And that's the most terrifying idea of them all, is to think that you're separate from your source, which you can't be in spiritual truth. But that thought or that fear of being separated from God is terrifying. So the ego wants to prop itself up to feel loved, and it just doesn't know how to do that. So the ego always is the one that says that you're not qualified, you're not ready, you're not good enough, you're worse than other people. Or the ego goes to another level and says you're better than others, you're more gifted, you're more talented, prettier, thinner, richer, etc. Ego always wants you to believe you're separated above or below other people. So anything that's feeding that is feeding the ego, and it never brings happiness. It can't. The ego does not know how to get happiness. Only the higher self does. So let's go back into prayer and meditation. Dear Jesus, please be our shepherd and guide the way safely and surely to find ourself as God created us. Please help each and every one of us to rediscover our true selves, our true spiritual self. Please help each and every one of us to let go of anything that's superficial, that doesn't matter. Help us to be aligned with the highest vibrational truth of God, the joy, the love, and the sharing. And please help us to know we truly and absolutely and literally are one with each other. Please help us to honor other people, even as we honor ourselves. Please help us to see the love and feel the love of God within everyone we meet, and to share that love as healers and teachers and way showers. We ask you, dear Lord, to show each and every one of us how we can be of service for God's will for this world of peace and understanding and cooperation. Please help us to be role models of peace, cooperation, and understanding in everything that we do. And if we falter in that, please help us to forgive ourselves and learn from it and move on. Jesus, we know that you've been on this earth since its inception, and that you will continue to be with this planet as we all move along. And we ask that you help us to feel safe. Please help us to eradicate the ego's fear energy that seems to bring so much terror and sadness and sorrow to this world. Please help us to put all that into context and know that we can make a positive difference in this world, no matter who we are, no matter how old or young we are, or what our station is in life. Help us to know that each and every one of us has a place for service of God's will. And I ask that you clearly guide everyone who's watching this video as to what you would like us to do next, O Lord. And listening with your feelings and your thoughts and words and your visions. Dear Jesus, what would you like us to do next? What would you have me do? Beautiful. And darling, if there's any other burdens you've gotten in touch with, anything in your thoughts or your body, your feelings right now that seems like it's an obstacle for you, please, let's give that to God and Jesus without hesitation or any kind of delay. Let's go ahead and take in a deep breath. And on the exhale, won't you join me in giving that to God? Holding nothing back. Sharing everything with your Creator, who knows everything anyway, but respects your free will choices to let it go. Beautiful. And Heavenly Father, And our Lord Jesus, we thank you so much for this opportunity for us to come together in unified vision and unified intention of peace for us all, because we are one. Jesus shows me the vision of a tree with one tree, the meaning the Creator, and all of us being leaves on that one tree. And that's why we can seem to be individual, like individual leaves, but all connected to the same tree and feeding from that tree. So please, Lord, help us to contribute in a way that's needed and brings blessings to the world. Please help all of us to know that we're leaders and that we can be leaders right this very minute. God bless you, my friend. Thank you so much for caring so deeply. And I encourage you to keep watching this meditation. Most of all, I encourage you to keep talking to God and Jesus. And share what you receive from them. Share the good word and the messages and the guidance that you get. They always speak about love. Even when they're warning us, it's always loving. So be sure that everything you share is loving and gentle, because that's the alignment of the high positive vibration of God's love. Sending you so much love and God's blessing. I'm Doreen Virtue, and I'll see you soon.